So that's what you get if you put your abstract into ChatGPT and have a design and name for your talk. But basically what we could also have named it is how to renovate, or how to update your dependencies and reduce your vulnerabilities. Quick introduction. My name's Max. I'm a cloud consultant for Senacor Technologies. I live in Nuremberg, married, blessed with a son, and I'm a former second league rugby player. Nevertheless, that's pretty easy to achieve in Germany. So yeah, don't get fooled by that.
Yeah, my name is Bastian. I'm based in Bonn. I'm working in cloud security engineering. I'm married but not blessed with a son. And in my free time, I prepare for long-distance triathlons.
Quick introduction, what's Senacor? Maybe we just brought you some data. So we're a German-based consultancy, mainly in the banking industry. That's also what our talk will be about. So what we have done for a German banking institute. As you can see, we're mainly focused on the DACH region, having our headquarters in Nuremberg, so that's where I'm from, and two nearshore hubs in Poland and in Slovakia. We're more than 1,000 employees by now, always on the look, so not using that as recruiting, but yeah, just to give you an insight, we're mainly focused on banking and insurance companies, so heavy regulated industries. They obviously have a large focus on security and security engineering. So that's why we're happy to be here. And what do we want to speak about? So first of all, quick setting the scene, where we come from, what kind of projects we had at our clients, why did we want to introduce an automated dependency management, and why we have so many vulnerabilities in the beginning. And then Bastian will take you through the tooling choice that we made. Spoiler alert, it came down to renovate, and how we implemented this, what kind of challenges we faced, what kind of challenges you might face when you want to do a automated dependency management, and how we may or may not have overcome them. And then of course, as with all other talks, we will have a quick Q&A session at the end, so looking forward to your questions. And with that, let's get started. So, we, in our last project, or our current project that we're in, we helped a German bank move to the cloud. Basically, that was our scope. There's a bank, mainly running in data centers across Germany, and they wanted to go to Google Cloud, migrate all of their apps into Google Cloud, migrate all of their client data into Google Cloud. Very large project, incorporated hundreds of engineers in total, I think several thousand employees. So one of the largest migration to the cloud so far. What kind of tools did we use? Well, it's cloud, obviously we use Terraform to deploy our infrastructure. We use some sort of Artifactory to host our binaries, stored our code in GitHub. Have all of this run in Kubernetes clusters. As we were on Google Cloud, it's obvious we're using Google Kubernetes engine, and beside that some other serverless technologies. Our services mainly written in Node.js and Quarkus, but that obviously wasn't the big difference. Most of that you can also use on premise. The main new thing for our client, at least, was a heavy focus and reliance on open source and open source software and libraries, and why that became an issue I will get to in a minute. Organizational wise, well, it was a very large project, and it might have been a bit waterfally, but well, obviously we went for the agile route, a bit safe-ish. If that's agile, well, you can decide for yourself. I'm not that big of a fan, but it's a big corporation, and SAFe helps to bridge the gap between agile and big corporations. And then, of course, yeah, all of that Spotify and agile, you get the gist. We try to be as agile as possible with such a large endeavor and, of course, such a large corporation. And we managed to do that in part, at least for our team, which was the infrastructure team. We pretty much did go down an agile route and built all of the infrastructure out and also built out most of the CI/CD pipelines for our feature teams that eventually then had to do this. And why now did we have a problem with open source? Open source is the way to go in the industry. I think everyone has agreed on that. The problem is the number of vulnerabilities, and especially given going to the cloud, the increased transparency of those vulnerabilities. So as you can see, that's data from end of last year, which we have stripped a bit to the last 6 years, but basically I think you can get the gist of it, is that vulnerability data in open source is rising, or vulnerability increases in general as more and more libraries get interconnected. One dependencies that you add to your project has multiple other dependencies pulling in, so your vulnerabilities increase. However, not all of those vulnerabilities actually present a high risk or even are exploitable. But for our project is, all they have seen is now they have a bunch load of vulnerabilities, mainly due to the transparency, but also to that. So what was the first reaction? Well, panic. One of our application owners, one of the largest application owners, eventually had like thousands of vulnerabilities. Most of them even critical, but without any additional data. The second was then, we need golden images. Who's familiar with golden images? Yeah. Okay, I'll try to explain it. So it's not Marvin Gaye or Pink Floyd, as you can see here, but golden image is the idea that you have a centrally mandated machine image, baseline image for your containers, and most of the time also a central team who takes care of those images and who tries to get rid of any vulnerability ever present in that image. Which, as you can imagine, this is a lot of work, and a lot of work most of the time takes time, and then creates a bottleneck on that team to process new golden images or new versions of that golden image, to keep track of all the additional, let's say, fixes that have come out and new functionalities that come out, which will give you, well, not enough updates, which will keep you lagging behind new features, and all in all creates a bottleneck. Of course, it has a, well, good side to it, is that your image that you're actually using in production to that point doesn't have any vulnerabilities. But as we have learned in our first talk, there are a lot of zero-day exploits, or more and more zero-day exploits, which of course won't get caught by something like that. So what do we actually want? We want frequent updates. We want our vulnerability, our dependencies to be updated as soon as possible, to not only get new features, but also to get fixes to existing vulnerabilities. And all of this, of course, with a high degree of automation to reduce the churn on our engineers. So why was all of that a problem in our special setting? Well, we are a regulated environment. Our customer was a bank, so anything security related always creates a lot of fuss. And as I said in the beginning, the scope was we moved to the cloud. In the cloud, everything's better, everything's easier. Therefore, of course, our timelines for solving vulnerabilities were like cut in pieces. So before that, in the on-premise legacy world, if you want to call it like that, I think a critical vulnerability had like 30 days of time to fix. In the cloud, it was 48 hours. And, well, I see people laughing, so I think you get the point that just cutting timelines short doesn't actually help you fulfill them. And, yeah, eventually that was scrapped, but in the beginning there was a lot of fuss about it. Initially, that whole we migrate to the cloud project had a very tight deadline. So all the feature teams, everyone was mainly focused on delivering business functionality. And NFRs such as security, of course, were pushed away or risk accepted, which I do believe is most of the time a problem. And it's never a good idea, but yeah, if you need to ship functionality, sometimes it's the only way to go. And of course, due to that tight timeline, our teams had a very high degree of independence. We tried to build the platform out for those teams. We built a self-service platform of infrastructure in the cloud, enabling the teams to, well, self-service every functionality they need from our infrastructure side or from the CI/CD side. But this, of course, led to a high degree of freedom and the teams achieving their deadline, but also missing governance on focusing on upgrading dependencies and also missing grip on those teams. The only grip you basically had was eventually telling them, no, you're no longer allowed to release, which of course then created a lot of fuss with the business because they didn't agree to that. Hey, why can't I have functionality A, B, and C? Why do I have to do some stupid things like automated dependency management in general? Why do I want to do that? Well, automated dependencies management keep your dependencies up to date. As I said, you have new features available readily. You are ready for new CVE patches. You're just up to date. You have new functionalities and reduce your maintenance cost and lifecycle cost in general by a bit. You avoid unmaintainable software. You can get, once we had that actual release freeze, everyone was scraping on, oh no, I need to get updates, and then need to bump by several major versions, which of course then trickled down to, oh, I need to do integration testing again, oh, something broke, I'll need to fix it. So keeping your software updated frequently, of course, gets rid of that. And, well, the obvious one, automation reduces churn. If you get a nice sweet PR with, hey, look, that's the new version, just press a button, that's obviously way easier than going on the hunt for updates of your dependencies on your own, figuring out where do I need to upgrade, what do I need to upgrade. And yeah, all this reduces the churn. And how did we do that? Will my dear colleague Bastian now tell you.
Thanks, Max. So let's see how we brought all those requirements that Max just wished for into the technical, how we achieved this technically. Who is actually using automated dependency management here? Okay, so still a few. Let's see how we can show you our journey to achieve this. So what do we want to have in the end from a technical perspective? We want to somehow configure our repositories or projects in a way that we have a dependency tool and those projects and repositories are known to that tool. Once the tool knows everything, we want this tool to scan your repositories periodically. So depending on how much change you expect, you can choose your values there. Once you know when your tool scans your repositories, you of course want this tool to understand your dependencies, so know where to look. And also, once it understands, okay, you have this dependency, where do you want to look for newer versions? So may it be an artifact registry, a private one, a public one, something like that. Then, of course, once the tool knows, okay, there is a new version, it should help you to bump up your version. So there should be a PR in the end. And this should be created automatically. Maybe also you want additional information in that PR that helps you decide, do I want to merge this PR right away or do I need to do some more tests? Also, the tests that you already have should be triggered automatically, of course, right? Also, you don't want to have multiple PRs, maybe hundreds of PRs in one day or 1 hour. You want to have them somehow grouped in one PR, if that makes sense. Once those PRs exist and they are created automatically, your engineers can start merging them, looking at them, look at the tests. Can we merge them without any fuss, or should we change something about that? Of course, you may also want automatic merging for minor versions or patch versions, up to you to decide in the end. And of course, there's always change going on. So if there is an existing PR and something changes in the main branch, you also want your PRs to be updated as well. So this is what especially Renovate can do for you. But of course, there are different bots that you can use for this purpose. We have looked at not at them all, but at a bunch of them, and we decided to go for Renovate for many reasons, let's say. I will explain it for the Renovate bot itself in a second, but if you want to have the full insight, there is a blog article on our page that you can read through what took us to Renovate and leave the other ones behind. So for Renovate, we can see it's licensed in AGPL, so we are free to use it. It works on most of the CI/CD platforms. As Max said, in our case, it was GitHub. We had a lot of repositories, many feature teams. So Max said it. We had 500 repositories. 20 feature teams, a whole zoo of different package managers and languages. So we needed support for that and found it in Renovate. And also, because we are working in a very highly regulated industry, we need a lot of possible ways to configure stuff. Because if one way, maybe the hosting option is not working for you because of compliance reasons or some setup from the security department, you can just opt in for another option there. So you can use the GitHub app, the GitHub Action, NPM package, a pre-built Docker image, what we opted in for, or even if you're running on GitLab, there's a GitLab runner project. In banks and highly regulated industries, normally you have a private registry, right? So you need to somehow cope with that. Look for newer versions in that and not in public ones. We also have specific needs. For instance, if you have deployment mechanisms that you created, maybe you want your tool to look in a specific location for new versions. So you can actually use regis matching for that to help you there. And in our case, we also wanted to have Helm charts updated. So that's what brought us to Renovate, and now our journey, how to implement that. When you first think about it, it's quite simple, right? You have a tool, you create a GitHub action, you throw the tool in there, and then you let it run. So in our case, we created a schedule. So each night at 3 a.m., we wanted to run this job. We went for the full image to have all the dependency already available to us. I skipped the checkout code and setup environment for length reasons. And then you run the tool. So should be fine, right? One cobblestone is actually that the engineer that creates this line, the cron line, becomes kind of an actor. So if the account that was used to create this line is deactivated, the whole schedule will not run. That's not very intuitive, right? So if you take this piece of code, throw it at 20 feature teams, and each and every feature team implements this code in their pipeline, you will have a lot of support requests, right? If a team member leaves the team, the schedule does not run, you will not get any PRs. So that is something that you need to consider. Also, if you run this in 500 repositories at 3 a.m. in the morning at the same time, you will have a problem maybe with self-hosted runners and your performance, right? So that's also a very interesting thing that you need to think about. But okay, let's maybe centralize this. So you have still the actor issue, but you only have it in one place. You only need to debug it at one place. Don't have the fuss to manage all the feature teams. You can also choose the time right. Maybe there is a time of the day where your runners are idling, so you can use that. There is a renovate auto-discover feature that you can use, so it will just scan your whole organization or each organization that the token has access to, and then process all the repositories. So that should be fine, right? But now one job is running 8 hours. And if one repository fails, no repository after that is processed. And of course, that creates additional unnecessary load on your runners, because if you want to restart that job, it will start in the beginning and then run for 8 hours again. And fail again, so you won't have, we will not win anything. Okay, so maybe let's make it a little bit more complicated, but prepare ourselves better. We keep the schedule, we keep the run, but we prepare in a way that we let renovate auto-discover all the repositories, write it into a JSON file, and then try to bring it into chunks of maybe 10, and feed this into the next step. So in this time, we have renovate run on this JSON in chunks of 10. So if one run fails, if one repository fails, you only skip 9 repositories. You can even improve that to say, okay, fail fast is false, so it will just continue even though one repository is failing. And now you have a very good parallelized run of renovate, but you will encounter additional issues because there is an API limit, and you don't want to hit those quotas. So you also need to limit how many jobs you want to have in parallel, and you need to find your sweet spot there. For us, it was like 10 chunks, so 10 repositories in one go, and maximum parallel jobs 5. But find out for yourself. Just be aware that there is this option. All right, so everything summed up. Keep in mind that the schedule depends on the user. If you have many repositories or over different organizations, maybe think about centralizing everything to reduce your support efforts. Those pipelines are error-prone, especially if it comes to shared configuration files and so. So think about that. There are those API requests, and we have run into that, so that's really, really easy. Try it for yourself. Also keep in mind that the token that you are using is maybe limited, so the default GitHub token will not make the tests in your PRs run, because GitHub created their security feature to not introduce cycles in workflows, if I remember that correctly. And maybe most important, collaboration and communication, talk to the feature teams, make them aware that you will provide the feature, and take in their feedback as well. Okay, and I think we can align on regularly updating dependencies is very, very crucial for our security posture. We all should do it. There are tools out there. There are possibilities that you can fine-tune. There is no excuse. So all those people that did not raise their hands, maybe think about that. Automation is your best companion to do that. You will not want to do that manually because you are, as Max said, very slow with that. Fine-tune your stuff to not create more churn for your developers, but actually reduce that, and somehow integrate the merging of the PRs into your regular reporting to actually let your engineers really look at the dependencies and merge those PRs.
Thank you very much, Max and Bastian. I think this kind of security awareness is something we really need in more environments than just maybe restricted ones like in finance or something like that. Thank you for that. Do we have any questions, any topics from the audience? There is already one. I will go over to you. Give me 1 second.
So we've done all of that. And I would argue that this is the easy part. So how did you solve the inherent problem to bumping dependencies, which is like, if you update them, things might break constantly. So in your diverse environment, how did you solve testing those updates?
So the easy answer for that is we are the infrastructure, the central infrastructure team. So actually the feature teams need to care about that.
That's not our job.
That's the easy answer. But of course, it relies on good testing and on your CI/CD pipelines to reflect what your testing should do. Right. Automate as much as you can, and yeah, in the end, make the most of the PRs that the automated tool does for you.
Just to add on that, so I'll try without my thing audible, is, well, keep the chunks as small as possible. So we're trying to release new functionality every 2 weeks. So if you keep that scope small, there can't creep that much of changes. And then, yes, of course, you need to be aware of if you do any major updates, things will most likely break. But if you keep on top of that, I think, and with minor or very small chunks, I do believe that is manageable. And then, as Bastian said, it's have your tests automated as much as possible and have a full set of regression tests running with every release. I know that's easier said than done, but that's always the focus. If you let's put it otherwise, if you don't do it, you risk your security posture, and eventually you will have a lot of work at hand with your business or your sponsors or whoever you want to call it, having very detailed focus on you is why can't you deliver anything for the next 3, 4, 5 weeks, month, whatever your release cycle, and do you actually want that attention, or just say, okay, hey, I'll rather spend some time constantly than having to worry about something breaking, or at worst, something actually happening. So.
Does it answer your question?
Yeah, I would just add that before you start doing this, from experience, because mine is kind of fresh, try to go to the developers and make sure that their test suites are as good as they can be, because this will break a lot of things. So it is important to do, very, very important, I want to stress that, but it will break a lot of stuff, and yeah, just make sure testing is good.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very good point. So
yeah.
you need to be on top of the testing, absolutely.
Thank you. I think we have one question more on this side.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Yeah, we implemented this, I think, 3 years or 4 years before. Yeah, it was nice. Everything is good. For the package managers like Java and all this stuff, which is actually easy using this. But for non-package managers like C++, which is really hard to find a tool which can do this stuff. Because it doesn't have a central package manager. Do you have any suggestions like this? Because this is too limited for some programming languages, but not all. It's a part of DevSecOps, SCA stuff, but it's really hard to find one tool which at least do good programming languages support, rather than only having Java, using Maven and all this, or Docker, Kubernetes, this stuff. Because as a practical experience, it's really hard. So do you have any tools in your research or something?
So tools to actually cope with all the different programming languages and provide you automated dependency management. Then I would recommend Renovate.
I think his question was especially for C++.
Ah, okay.
And the easy answer is, for us that was out of scope, because...
Yeah. Do you want to add something?
Yeah, I have another question. We have implemented this on a fairly new repository. The product is 4 years old. And we got 32 PRs. And we are somehow, I would like to say, in a good security posture. So we try to tackle as much as we can. My question is, I know this is a very isolated case. So in your case, I would like to know how many PRs did you have when you run this on the old legacy code?
Yeah, so we don't have that much old legacy code, but of course we had a lot of PRs. You can limit the number of PRs that Renovate creates per day, you know that. So we try not to overwhelm the developers. And yeah, they need to start at the top and finish at the bottom. It was in the hundreds, yeah. Higher, even higher. I don't have a total number, but 500 is something that we think we reached, yeah. You can also define certain dashboards to monitor that, of course, how many PRs are there created by Renovate. We are currently doing that to get a little bit better overview. But yeah, we have many feature teams to address this.
So when you implement this, you have to think of 500 breaking points.
Yeah, you need to have many teams to care for. Yeah.
Maybe that's also the digest is rather start with something like that. I mean, it's always, that's what our problem was. Our main focus at the moment was a very tight deadline, build business functionality. So if that's the gist of what we've just told you, is stop with that from the beginning, have this baked into your day-to-day life from the get